Hey, there's little messages, look. I miss you. That's all it says. Rest in peace, Mad Jack. Oh, poor old Mad Jack. Bless him, eh? Looks like some sort of memorial.
For your consideration, the rugged cliffs of Wales, where the ancient and modern collide under brooding sky. Here, a traveler of time and space known as the Doctor and his companion, Ruby, tread upon the precipice of the unknown. An innocent misstep upon a mysterious circle triggers a cascade of events that will test the boundaries of reality and resilience of the human spirit. In the blink of an eye, the Doctor is gone, and Ruby must navigate the world with her own follower. Every step she takes from here on out will challenge the very fabric of existence, and the distance between may be at the very heart of the Twilight Zone.
If Dot and Bubble is the Black Mirror Doctor Who episode, 73 Yards is the Twilight Zone Doctor Who episode. I remember when this episode aired, queuing it up on Disney Plus and expecting to see the annual horror episode from Doctor Who. You know, the one they throw out every season? Sometimes it's kinda good, sometimes it's pretty bad, but considering this was going to be both a Dr. Light episode and a horror episode, I wasn't expecting Blink levels of good or anything. And plus RTD was gonna write it. This is the same guy who wrote the Absorbaloff Dr. Light episode. Boy, was I wrong. I sat back after this episode and I looked around a bit dazed. What had I just watched? What did it mean? What did the old woman say to everyone? Was the old woman Ruby when she got old? What happened to the Doctor? And my goodness, what got into RTD? Friends, I think it's time we talk about the very best episode of Doctor Who last season. Let's talk about
73 yards out.
So the Doctor and Ruby land on the cliff sides of Wales when the Doctor steps on a mysterious circle and seconds later disappears from the episode. Ruby finds herself stranded. She can't get back to the TARDIS and is being followed in the distance by some strange old woman who gets no closer than 73 yards. Hey, that's the title. Acts like she knows sign language, but clearly does not. And says something to everyone that approaches her that makes them run off in terror from Ruby and never want to be around her again. And just when you think that the rest of the episode is going to be set inside this little asshole pub that she treks her way to, nope. This episode isn't here to hold your little hand and make you feel safe. This unsettling episode spans the rest of Ruby's life. And if you think it's going to wrap up real nice and tidy like 99% of all other Doctor Who stories because ultimately this is still a kid's show, you can kiss this episode's ass because it's not going to give you those answers. That's right, the annual horror episode turned into a psychological mindfuck of epic proportions. After this episode aired, there were a few reviewers that I watch regularly who had bad reactions to it. And it's not like we can't all have different opinions on episodes or eras or even showrunners. This is a science fiction show that has been airing on and off for 60 years, has 883 individual episodes and counting, 14 canon actors that have played the Doctor on TV, and who knows how many outside official canon, over 60 companions, and triple as many villains. The fans are gonna disagree sometimes. But this one was interesting in how it divided us. Those who loved the episode really loved it and thought it was amazing because it wasn't like a normal Doctor Who episode. This episode honestly felt like it was written for another TV show and incorporated into Doctor Who. And I think for a lot of longtime fans, that was off-putting. They're accustomed to answers. And this episode plainly states that there aren't going to be any because Ruby doesn't remember anything that happened to her by the end. This episode took everything that could give Ruby comfort, and by extension, the viewer. The Doctor, gone. The TARDIS, locked. The locals, weirdos. Although, weirdos in a great way. I would love to see a whole episode of these dickheads. Her family hates her. Unit, tainted. Her cute little plans to change the future, wrong. Ruby, you're stuck. There's no getting out of this. The Doctor is gone. Your family is still going to hate you. The TARDIS stays locked. Unit won't help. You're just going to have to accept it because for the rest of your life, some eerie entity making weird hand gestures at you from a visible distance on a non-foggy day is your future. That's pretty alienating for a fan base used to rolling pepper pots, farting aliens, and potato heads. But if you're a fan of this franchise for any length of time, you know there comes episodes every now and then that elevate this little sci-fi show from what it is. One of the things I love about Doctor Who is the genre shifts. In any given week, we could be watching sci-fi horror, sci-fi romance, sci-fi faith, sci-fi history, sci-fi politics, sci-fi whatever. It's sometimes like Doctor Who is an anthology show without being one. And some of the best anthology shows, at least in the US, were shows like The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, Night Gallery, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Without shows like that, you don't have Black Mirror, Love, Death, and Robots, or even Goosebumps. I've always been a pretty big fan of shows like these. Every year growing up, my local TV station would run 24-hour marathons of The Twilight Zone on Thanksgiving, and my ass would be in front of the TV as much as I could during those 24 hours, watching every episode. I loved how weird some of them were, how creepy, how even some ironic. Some of them sucked ass and you couldn't wait for them to end, but every single one of them was different. But there was one episode that was really different. So different, it won an Academy Award. So different, the Academy of Motion Pictures keeps this one in an archive. This episode is called An Occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge. Now, I should be honest and tell you that An Occurrence on Owl Creek Bridge was really just a short film made about a short story written back in 1890 by an American Civil War vet. There's also a movie that kind of explores the same themes that you might have heard of. It's quite an insanely awesome film called Jacob's Ladder. You should check it out sometime. But Rod Serling loved this short film, and it was the one exception to be aired on the Twilight Zone that was not produced by the show. Now, all of that's just background info, and nobody has come here for that. But if you haven't seen it, the episode is about a guy who's about to get his ass hung for blowing up a bridge during the Civil War. See this here? It ends up being a full-on fuck around and find out situation for our main character. Anyway, he's about to get his life liberated from him for screwing around with explosives when he thinks about his wife and kids. You know, like you do. Anyway, they drop him to hang him. His noose snaps, he falls into the water, he gets up, he escapes the army that's chasing him somehow, he makes it to his house, and he's about to hug and kiss his wife and be with his kids again when his neck snaps back, and he's actually hung from the tree at the very beginning. Turns out the whole episode is his last thoughts before death. And for a kid watching a Twilight Zone marathon of talking Tinas and a man on the wing of the plane, this was a particularly disturbing episode. I mean, I knew it was good, the acting, the imagery, the gotcha ending. But bro, I was right in the middle of pig doctors calling a hot woman gross, and this introvert finally having all the time in the world to read books but broke his glasses. This shit was different, and I didn't know how to feel about it. If you had asked me at the time, I would have told you I thought it sucked. Because I wanted more of what the Twilight Zone was normally dishing out. But I'll tell you, if there was an episode that really stuck with me, it was an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. It was different. And over time, I've come to appreciate that story in all of its weird-ass glory. I think a lot of people had that same reaction after 73 Yards. Yes, it's odd and creepy. No, you're never gonna know what the old woman said about Ruby or where the doctor went or what exactly happened. But it's gonna stay with you. And I think that's because this episode isn't about all of that. This episode is actually about Ruby, but not about her mom or the snow or any of that crap. This is a character study about who this girl is and what is her greatest fear. And her greatest fear is abandonment. She was abandoned as a baby, and even though she's this bubbly, fun 19-year-old girl that seems pretty well adjusted, like most of us, she isn't on the inside. On the inside, she's scared that everyone she loves will eventually abandon her. And it holds her back. So this episode decides to face her with her greatest fear. And she loses the doctor. She loses her family. She loses everything. She loses any hope of having a life that she creates on her own. That's taken from her too. And the rest of the episode hones in on how will she react now. So Ruby figures that she'll try and use this weird power for good and maybe fix something that the doctor said by having her follower make Roger Ap Gillum, whatever the fuck his name is, Roger Ap Gwillem, run into hiding, but it doesn't change anything. Ruby has to learn that she is good enough for her. Even after everyone abandons her, she learns to see her follower as the only one who never did. And in an odd way, she learns to love it, and she welcomes its embrace at the end. And spoilers, it turns out that she was the woman, and she's been following herself at some enchanted distance for this whole time. And I know we're not told, but I feel like the doctor breaking the fairy circle created some time loop or some paradox for Ruby. And in the end, because she learned how to rely on herself subconsciously, she's able to see the woman faster and prevent the doctor from stepping on the circle. I even like to think that the note she reads at the very beginning that says, "I miss you," was written by her to the doctor and left in the circle. Now, I know this hasn't been like one of my normal reviews. 73 Yards is the best episode that I've seen since Heaven Sent. If there's one episode that I will remember from this season with real fondness because it had meat on the bones and is one of those rare transcendent episodes, it'll be this one. Now, I have a pretty low bar when it comes to Doctor Who. If you've been following my reviews so far, then you've seen I've given a lot of leeway, and I give some pretty high ratings. But I keep the 10 out of 10s for only these kinds of episodes. Well done, RTD. Well done. Either that, or I'm just a really big dork for the Twilight Zone. Like I said, I know this one was different. If you came to get our regularly scheduled nonsense of nitpicking and what I liked versus what I didn't like versus what I'm stupid and don't understand, I promise we will be getting back to that next time during our review of Dot and Bubble. But I wanted to give you a good understanding of what I thought of this episode, why I think it's a 10, and why you're stupid if you don't. Hey, did you know that I'm up to 42 subscribers? I want to thank you guys for being so awesome, especially out there on Blue Sky. You guys have been fantastic. If you guys aren't on Blue Sky, you probably should get on board with that. And hey, TikTok's still available. And because it is, I'm there, so join the over 1,000 people that follow me there but don't follow me here. Until next week when we explore the Black Mirror episode instead of the Twilight Zone episode, stay salty, my friends.
Every now and then I get a little bit terrified. I see the fucking look in your eyes. Turn around, bright eyes. Every now and then I fall apart.